Hello, General Math students. Please take out your notebooks and a pencil. Remember, you are expected to take notes during this video. Feel free to pause it at any time to catch up and take your notes, or to rewatch any part of it if you feel you need to see it again, or make sure you know what you're doing. We are going to do 2.3a, which is adding fractions. So in your notebook, please label your page as that, 2.3a, adding fractions. This definitely should be going into your notes. So again, once it's filled out, feel free to pause it and copy it down. To add and subtract fractions, we are going to do 3 basic steps. Number 1, we are going to find a common denominator and also equivalent fractions. That's going to be our first step. Our second step is to add or subtract the numerators. And in this case, we're just going to be adding. And we're going to keep the denominators the same. Once you've added, then you are going to simplify your answer. I will only accept fractions in their lowest terms. That's where I am looking. If you got it right, but it's not in lowest terms, you will lose points. So again, pause this video if you need to write this down, but this page should go into your notes. So let's do some examples. For this one, we notice that we have common denominators. So step 1 is already done. We're going to do 1, 2, and 3. Step 1 is done. 2, we're going to add our numerators, which is going to give us 5. And our denominators are going to stay the same, which is 6. So we're done with step 2. Step 3, we are going to simplify it. And 5, 6 is already in lowest terms, so we are finished. That was an easy one. Now, let's do another one. Steps 1, 2, and 3. 1 is done because we have common denominators. 2, we're going to add. 1 plus 3, 2 is 3. Denominators stay the same. We're done with step 2. Step 3 is in simplest form. Yes, it is. Another easy one. However, we don't always have common denominators. So now we have to do steps 1, 2, and 3. Step 1, we need a common denominator. What's a common denominator between 10 and 4? So I could count by tens. And I'm only going to go up to 50, and I'm going to count by 4s. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. And here's where I'm going to stop. There's my common denominators. But I'm also going to find equal fractions, equivalent fractions. I multiplied the 4 by 5, so 2 by 5 is 10. I did 10 times 2, so 2 times 2 is 4. Now I'm done with step 1. I found equivalent fractions, common denominators, and then equivalent fractions. So step 2, add my numerators. 4 plus 10 is 14. Denominators stay the same, so I have 20. Step 3, I can simplify. I'm going to divide both of these by 2, which is going to give me 7/10, which is now in simplest form. Again, feel free to rewatch any part of this video in case you didn't understand it. Let's do another one. Steps 1, 2, and 3. Common denominator, equivalent fractions. Common denominator between 2 and 4. Again, I could go through, but there it is. So 2 times 2 gives me the 4. So 1 times 2 gives me 2. And this one, I'm just staying the same because it's already got a denominator of 4. We're done with step 1. Step 2, 2 plus 1 is 3. Denominators stay the same. Step 2 is done. And it's already in simplest form, so step 3 is done. Again, I would recommend always following steps 1, 2, and 3. Now we're going to throw a negative in there, and it's really not going to be any different than what we were already doing. Still 3 steps. Step 1, common denominator. Between 5 and 3, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. There's my common denominator. So I multiplied the 5 by 3, so now I get 3/15. There's that equivalent fraction. 3 times 5 gives me the 15, so -2 times 5 gives me a -10. 3 times 5 gives me 15. Now I'm done with step 1. First common denominator, then an equivalent fraction for each one. Step 2, we're going to add the numerators. So 3 plus a -10 is going to give me a -7. Denominators stay the same. I cannot simplify it, so my answer is -7/15. Let's do another one with a negative. Common denominator would be 21. And again, if you have to list the numbers off to the side, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, there it is. Please do so. 7 times 3 gave me that 21. So 3 times a -3 is a -9. 3 times 7, so 1 times 7 is 7. We're going to add them together. Step 1 is done. Step 2, add the numerators. -9 plus 7. I'm going to come out of the hole, but not all the way. So I got -2 over 21. Denominators stay the same. Done with step 2. Cannot simplify it, so my answer is -2/21. So now let's do mixed numbers, and you are not going to add the whole numbers first. We are going to do something different. So let's get this into our notes. We've done all the examples, but now we got to put this into our notes. So we are going to start by turning our mixed numbers into improper fractions. It's going to help us with any borrowing or anything like that, and with the negatives. Then, just like before, you're going to find your common denominator. And equivalent fractions. They kind of go together. Find your common denominator and then equivalent fractions. And again, today we're going to add. You're going to add or subtract your numerator and keep your denominator the same. And again, simplify your answer. So if you need to pause the video so that you can get this into your notes, please do so. Then we're going to do a couple of examples. So here we go. We're going to start, now we've got 4 steps. Step 1 is to turn those mixed numbers into improper fractions. And if you remember 4 1/2, we're going to take 4 times 2, which gives us 8, and then we're going to add that 1, which gives us 9, and the denominator stays the same. 3 times 6 is 18, plus the 5 gives us 23, denominator stays the same. Done with step 1. Now we find common denominators and equivalent fractions. Common denominator is going to be 6, which is nice because this one, then I can just leave the same. I don't have to do anything with it. 2 times 3 gives me 6, so 9 times 3 gives me 27. Done with step 2. Step 3, we're going to add the numerator. So I've got 27 plus 23. That gives me 50. Denominators stay the same. Done with step 3. Now we have to simplify it. We have an improper fraction, so we're going to change it. So I'm going to do 50 divided by 6. How many 6s go into 50? I know that's 8, which is 48, with a remainder of 2. So I have 8 as my whole number, and I have 2 left over, and my denominator stays the same. But I'm not done yet. I can simplify 2, 6. They can both be divided by 2. So my answer is 8 1/3. It's a lot of work, so watch it again if you have to, but let's do another example. -5 2/3 plus 3 5/6. 4 steps. Do me a favor and ignore the negative for right now. We're going to ignore the negative for right now. So let's change our two mixed numbers into improper fractions. 5 times 3 is 15, plus 2, I have 17/3, plus 3 times 6 is 18, plus 5 gives me 23/6. Now I'm going to put that negative back in front of the 17. I don't use it to change it into an improper fraction, but I do put it back on. Done with step 1. Step 2, let's use a different color. We should do this. Step 2, common denominators. 3 and 6, I'm going to do 6. So 3 times 2, -17 by 2. So that's -34. Feel free to use calculators over 6. Plus 23/6. Common denominators, and then found a equivalent fraction. Let's do step 3. We're going to add our numerators. So we have -34 plus 23. We're not quite out of the hole, but we have 11 left. So my answer is a -11. Denominator stays the same. Last step, we're done with 3, so last step we're going to simplify. Let's do 11 divided by 6. How many 6's come out of 11? 1. We subtract the 6, that gives me 5 left over. Bring my negative out, -1 and 5/6. Cannot simplify anymore. There's my answer. Let's do a word problem. Word problem is pretty much the exact same thing as what we've been doing. John walked a half of a mile yesterday and 3/4 of a mile today. How many miles has John walked? So we're going to add these two together. 1/2 plus 3/4. 3 steps because they're only fractions. So step 1, common denominator and equivalent fractions. Between 2 and 4, it's going to be 4. So times 2, that gives me 2/4 plus 3/4. There's step 1. Step 2, add, which gives me 5, stays the same, which gives me 4. Now we're going to simplify. 5 divided by 4, 1/4 goes in with 1 left over. So my answer is 1 1/4. Cannot simplify it anymore, but do have to label because it is a word problem. 1 1/4 miles. Let's do more word problem. Mary is preparing for a final exam. She studied 3/2 hours on Friday, 6/4 hours, this should say hours, not miles, on Saturday, and 2/3 hours on Sunday. How many hours did she study altogether? Altogether means we're going to add. So 3/2 plus 6/4 plus 2/3. Now we start with step 1. We have to find a common denominator between all of these. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 4, 8, 12. We got 12, 3, 6, 9, 12. So my common denominator is going to be 12. So there's how the problem is going to look. So 2 times 6. So 3 times 6 is 18. 4 times 3, so 6 times 3 is 18. 3 times 4 gives us 12, so 2 times 4 gives us 8. So we're going to add all, there's step 1. Now step 2, we're going to add all of these together. Let's see, 18, 18, and 8, 8, 16, 24, 2, 3, 4, so I get 44. Denominator stays the same. Step 2 is done. Okay, simplify. How many 12s come out of 44? I know that's 3, which is 36. with 8 left over. So I've got 3 and then 8/12. 8/12 can be simplified. I'm going to divide by 4. So I get 3 and 2/3, and I have to label it hours. There's my answer. So watch the video as many times as you need to. Then I want you to do the 10 adding fraction questions in Go Formative. And after that, you watch the 2.3 video on subtracting fractions. Please message me if you have any questions.